let's review the different stages in the writing process. At Keys to Literacy, we decided to come up with an acronym to help students and teachers remember the different stages. If we call the routine the process writing routine, and we take the first letter of each one of those words, it gives us the 4 stages. So the T from the becomes think, the P from process becomes plan, and so on and so forth. The first stage, the think stage, this is where students think through who's the audience, what's the purpose for the piece, what type of writing do I want to use for it. It's also where if you don't have a topic that's been assigned by the teacher, you have to brainstorm what's your topic, what's the subtopic. You also need to brainstorm what ideas and what background information do you already have about the topic. If you're writing from any sort of sources, this is where at the think stage, you have to think about what you've read, what you've watched in video. It's where you're going to gather information. 2-column notes becomes very important at this point so that the students, as they're gathering their information and coming up with their ideas, they've got a place to store it. The next step on the planning stage is where you take all this information and these ideas and you put them into an organized plan. A little bit later, you'll hear about how the top-down topic web is a great planning tool for that. So the think and the plan stages is where all that work before you even pick up the pen to start or a pencil to start writing the rough draft, this is where all that happens. It's also, these 2 stages are great times for students to work cooperatively with other students so that they can together get more ideas on the paper. So that together, when they're reviewing their sources, they can pull out and together share their thoughts about what information do they want to get into their notes. The third stage, and this is where so many kids, this is where they want to jump right to and completely skip the think and the plan, right? But this is where they now take these ideas and the information that they've gathered and they turn it into their sentences and their paragraphs. And this is hard for a lot of students. Some of them have really great ideas and they've gathered some good information, but because it's so hard for them to sometimes even write good sentences, this is where the writing process falls apart. One of the big messages we want to give kids is that if you've taken the time at the think and the plan stage to come up with an organizing tool, you want to make sure that you follow the plan. And then finally, once you get your first draft written, now you need to actually do some revision. And this stage really has a couple of sub-stages. And what we always say is the first time that you're going to review and revise what you've written, you want to do it focusing on the content. So did you get all your ideas across? Do the sentences adequately express what you want to say? Did you use the right vocabulary, the academic vocabulary? And so once you review for that kind of information and make some changes, the last thing you want to save is what people typically refer to as proofreading and editing. And this is where you want to look at your conventions. So how's my spelling? How's my capitalization? My punctuation? Now, at this point in time, the revision might only go as far as just making annotations on your rough draft, making some changes there. But if it's a really formal piece, then that revision might move to the next step of actually creating a second, more formal draft. So those are the stages in the writing process. I think as it relates to how do you teach this to students, the big takeaway I'd like you to have is that this isn't something that you decide one day you're going to plan a lesson and you're going to teach this all at once and then it's over. This is teaching kids about this routine is more about finding opportunistic moments. Every day they appear where you can remind students what the 4 stages are, remind them to be using them. And that's why things like this poster, the handouts that list the stages in the writing process, you can give those out to kids, put them in plastic sheet protectors, they can keep them in their notebooks. It's those kinds of reminders that eventually these stages will just become natural and they won't have to think about them at all. So those are the stages in the writing process.